Welcome to the Great New Zealand Real Estate Project. I have just finished having a chat to T from Ray White on the North Shore. She is a top performing agent, often in the top 5 on the North Shore, and sometimes even in the top 20 across the country. And we had a chat about her move from the UK to New Zealand. She shared some of her funniest stories in real estate, and she's also a lover of motorcycles. And so we talked about the similarities between riding a bike and selling real estate. So have a listen, tell us what you think, and join the conversation. So Jamie, my colleague, he gave you a call and then he said to me, you have to talk to this person. She's a badass, she rides motorbikes and she does real estate. So thanks for coming on.
No, it's a pleasure, as I say, and it was good to meet Jamie. He's a rising young star, as I can see, so he's obviously found a good home with yourself to mention him through that, so thanks.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
I have a funny story about how we met, actually.
Yeah?
I was flatting in K Road in an apartment at the time, and we had this young couple who wanted to move in, and we said early 20s in the advertising.
Yeah.
And they came in and they were like, yeah, we're early 20s, all this sort of thing. And we were like, we get along with these guys. They seem a bit young, but, they seem all good. So we'll say yes. And they moved in, and then a week later we found out that they were actually in their teens, and they lied about their age. And apparently they'd been turned away from a bunch of flats because of their age, and so they started telling people they were in their early 20s. And anyway, we ended up getting along, and the rest is history, and now he's working with me.
Brilliant. Well, they say never let the truth get in the way of a good story, so there you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and so you're from the UK originally, came to New Zealand in 2006, was it?
Yeah, about then. We actually came over 2008. We came over for the first time 2006 for the holiday. Small children at the time, and was not doing real estate at all in the UK. Totally different stuff. Come from a corporate finance background. Worked in a number of the trading banks in London over the years. So fancied a bit of an adventure. Came over here on holiday in 2006 and just really liked it. Reminded us very much of what the UK had been like 20 years ago, and I think a number of expats would tell you the same. So we came over, did the holiday, went back, found that we were pretty unsettled in terms of we pined a bit for New Zealand, and basically mobilised everything and emigrated out here in 2008. So I've been here nearly 16 years now.
Yeah, right. Still got the accent though.
Yeah, I haven't lost that yet. Although my UK friends tell me I sound Kiwi. I don't think I do, but clearly they spot the difference.
Must be the odd word or something.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
Nice. And so coming over here was obviously a huge shift.
Yeah, huge shift. Basically, 4 of us packed up all your possessions and shipped them over. And I now know more about marine insurance and all the other things you need to know about when you're shifting a container load of goods.
So you took everything with you as well? You didn't sell it all off and start again?
Pretty well, no. We took quite a lot of stuff with us. We bought stuff we probably shouldn't have bought. We bought an awful lot of electrical stuff that everyone said, oh, it's so expensive in New Zealand, and it's not. And half of the voltage doesn't work very well here anyway.
Yeah, right.
What we didn't bring, and we probably should have bought, was the cars. We had some European cars at the time which we sold off and didn't bring, and that would have been a profitable thing to bring over because, they're a lot more expensive here, obviously, than in the UK. We bought all that stuff over, and the children.
Hopefully the children.
Yeah, hopefully the children. We didn't do a Home Alone thing on them. And they were at an age, my son Cameron was 5, just coming up 6 at the time. Daughter Natasha was 4, coming up 5. So for them, it was pretty easy. They had primary school friends, but nothing, like teenagers would have, or once you've got to college, it's a bit more, enduring. But it was a big adventure for them. They'd never heard of New Zealand, or they'd seen it somewhere down the bottom of the map or
it's left off the map altogether.
Oh, it's left off the map altogether, yeah. Or everyone says, oh, no, that's Australia. That's not New Zealand. They came over. Quite different, the schools here. In the UK, if you go to a primary school, it's got huge fences all around it. It's got a lock on the gate that lets the parents in, dropping off time and out, and then not again until the afternoon. There's a much higher level of security.
No escaping for the kids.
No escaping for the kids, and no getting in for anybody else. So here we settled in the bays, and the local primary school they went to was just completely open. Great sea views, and we just kind of wandered in and went, oh, there's no fences, you know.
They can just come and
they're
go.
going to come and go, and they're going to escape, and half the kids are running around with no shoes on. And I think one of the first things, because coming from the background of school lunches and all the other stuff, there was a child like eating a pie for breakfast on the playground, and having come from the Jamie Oliver healthy school lunches brigade, it was a bit confronting. But we quickly discovered that actually, with the outdoor lifestyle and all the other things that are so different over here, you know, diet is actually, you're okay because you're running around half the day and not stuck in the classrooms. So yeah, there's a lot of things that were different, but different in a good way.
Yeah, it's funny you say the no shoes thing. I probably
Yeah.
shouldn't say this, but I've got no shoes right
Well,
now.
same. And, you know, now I'll wander around the office with no shoes on. That would be absolutely unheard of in the UK. Someone would look at you like you had two heads.
Yeah, what are you doing?
Yeah.
The good thing about a podcast like this is you can present yourself up at the top, and then you
Exactly. Yeah.
can... So all the video calls as well these days. Put
Yeah.
on the suit jacket and away you go.
Yeah, that's right. You know, and it's you know, I think it's a good thing. I think it's also a good thing. One of the first things I discovered about New Zealand is people don't take themselves too seriously, and that's a really good thing. And a class system, which in the UK you come from, you know, who you went to school with, where you live, what car you drive, you know. Here it's very much more about, you know, it doesn't matter what car you drive or where you live, you're either a good person or you're not a good person. And the two aren't mutually exclusive. So it's a really far, perhaps it's because it's a smaller country and that there's not quite so many people. And the degrees of separation, you know, you'll probably come across someone again. Keeps people more honest, I don't know. But generally speaking, far more approachable.
Yeah, more integrated compared to the UK.
Absolutely. Still very much a class system in the UK. And there's just so many people and so much immigration. It's quite... diverse sounds like it's a positive thing. I think it's probably gone beyond diverse over there now. And it's actually becoming segregated.
Right,
Yeah.
where everyone's kind of got their pockets of
Yeah.
society and they don't integrate and
exactly.
talk to each other. And
Yeah, you know.
Yeah, right.
I mean, they've got an election coming up, and I still follow what goes on because I've got family back there and I'm interested in it. But the election's coming up early July, and it will be quite telling, you know, all of the campaigning that's going on at the moment, because they have a whole host of economic problems there right now.
Yeah, right. I think it's one of those interesting ones because we look at the politics in New Zealand and the landscape here, and even here sometimes it can feel like there's some division, but you often compare it to overseas and it seems like they're significantly more divided than we are.
Yeah, and it's the thing on the mind myself about, you know, all the things that I found really wow and great when I first came over. You know, count my blessings and go back and think about them because they're still there, you know, and you can get very just acclimatised to it because you live here, but getting out of bed in the morning and walking down and seeing like Rangitoto across the East Coast bays and just being able to, you know, go into the supermarket, have a chat with people at the till, they still pack your bags for you. People at the petrol station will still pump your fuel for you if you want them to. And all those little things, probably mainly about customer service and just integration, that I've now become used to. Quick trip back to the UK soon reminds me. Standing in Tesco's waiting for someone to pack my bag because I've just drifted off, and they look at you like, well, what are you doing? Oh, sorry, yeah, I'll pack my own bag. You know, things like that, just little stuff.
Yeah, and I guess one of the things there that strikes me as being grateful, you know, whether it's something like that or just being in an environment where we do have beautiful landscapes around us, things like being able to go to the beach or Rangitoto on your doorstep.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's much easier, I think, to remember here. It's not about the destination, it is actually about the journey. Take your time on the way. I think the pressures that made us choose to leave the UK are still very much there, and they're probably still very much worse. So it's all about getting there and getting it finished and whatever. There's not much time left in between to actually have fun. Here, I think we still have very much more of a, yes, everyone works hard, but there's a bit more of a leisure culture, and still like Friday afternoon, yeah, okay. You know, if you're done, clock off, go to the beach, you know, go and have a drink with your friends or whatever. And obviously real estate is very much like that because it's a very work hard when you need to and pull the long hours. So it's important to actually take the time out for yourself at times.
Yeah, I was about to ask, is real estate 7 days a week a lot of the time?
It is.
And people calling you after 5 o'clock. I mean, I think I've had calls as late as 11 p.m. at night.
Yeah.
How do you manage that work-life balance in an industry where it's 7 days a week?
Yeah, it's quite hard. I mean, to start with, when the kids were much smaller, I wasn't in real estate at all. So I came to real estate about 9 years ago. Got into it when they were probably intermediate age children. And like most real estate agents starting up, worked on my own. So that's when you do pull all the hours because you haven't got a PA and you haven't got a team and everything's down to, you and learning. So I quickly discovered that if you didn't want to just, drop out of all social circles, you needed to somehow make this work. So the first step for me was I would try and schedule as far as you can to do listings around the same framework in terms of the calendar. So work really hard for 4 or 5 weeks, do 3 or 4 listings at the same time, and then have a little bit of a break in between. Good plan until you get to the point that you then realise you've got that like wiggly line where
income goes
up and down. Luckily, having a partner who's on a salary, I had a little bit more flexibility than people who wouldn't. Mm-hmm. But probably about 3 years in, discovered that actually teaming up with someone would be a sensible thing to do. Was very lucky in that my business partner has complementing skills to mine. Zhang is Chinese. He's actually came from a mechanical engineering background. And when we teamed up, he was like a rookie real estate agent. So I like to think that coming into my team at the time and actually being trained by me means that we have, skills that work alongside each other really well. I suppose the downside of that is he didn't come with any real estate skills already, so we found our way together. But that's led to a really good balance, I guess, that between us we split the open homes, we split the work, so we pretty well always get a day off every weekend and 1 weekend off a month. So that was the journey into, what is it that the saying, if you want to go hard, go on your own, but if you want to go long, go as a, in company. Yeah. And I think that's worked out well because we've been partnership together for 5 years now, and it's been very successful, not just from a financial point of view, from a, our business point of view and results.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where a lot of agents, they do start out on their own, or they sometimes come in as an associate and then go out on their own. But the sustainability factor is huge when it comes to working in a team. Yeah. Obviously, you can have huge challenges within that because different ways of doing things, different strengths, and so finding the right team member is critical to actually making that work. Yeah. Because otherwise you can also get into, I did this and I worked on this house and therefore this, and that can complicate things massively. So what are some of the things that you guys do as a team that you think makes it successful for you?
Yeah. I think communication is the most important thing. You have to talk to each other. And if something, is maybe grinding your gears a bit, talk about it. Don't let it become a problem. In terms of structure, I think getting your splits or however you're going to manage that right from the word go is important. And I think, going back to where you've said that, I worked on this one and I didn't work on that one and you brought in that lead, but I brought in the buyer. Forget all that. Come up with an agreement. It doesn't matter who brought the buyer in or who brought the listing in, you've got to go on that split. Because if you develop the trust between you, there'll be times Zhang will bring in a huge buyer, because he is Chinese, he speaks Mandarin, I don't, and therefore has a natural affinity with that, side of the buyer pool. Other times I'll bring in maybe a big listing, but it's kind of swings and roundabouts at the end of it. Mm-hmm. There's lots of things that he'll bring to the party that I can't, and vice versa. So we just agree to split up front. This is how we're going to split it. This is how we're going to split the costs. And regardless of, who's doing what, that's the way we roll it. Sometimes it's in my favour, sometimes it's in his favour.
Yeah, I think that's important, and it's the trust factor, right?
Yes, I think so.
And not worrying about every little detail of every transaction. You have to ultimately be able to let that go. Yeah. So that you can both build the business. I mean, we talk about it's like Zhang's family to me now. He's had 2 children while we've been, working in a partnership, wife and his girls. It is like family. And I think if you look at some really successful real estate teams, they are family. So maybe if you can develop a partnership that's along those lines rather than just along the fiscal and, the money, it will be more successful. Yeah, totally. So in terms of that, because some of that takes a while to build that trust and to build the relationship and all that sort of thing, how did you get started as a team?
So my manager at the time just basically said to both of us separately, look, I think you need someone to help you for these reasons, and I think this person would be a good match. So thank you to him for actually identifying that. Then you have the awkward that we both feel a bit like, oh, but what are we going to do about our existing listings and what we're going to do here and what we're going to do there? And in the end, we just said, okay, as at the 1st of August, anything you've got, I'm on, anything I've got, you're on. And we just grouped from that point. So that was the leap of faith that came in because we had different value of listings in different areas and different stages. Some would be really easy to sell, some had been languishing for 6 months, and then just took it from there. And so I think it was the leap of faith that built the trust quickly.
Yeah, and showing that you're both willing to come to the table regardless of what that table looks like at that time.
Yeah. And there were definitely things in my favour and definitely things in his favour. And for us to go, well, actually, let's not just drill down to each one and work out all the differences around each property you've got or the collateral you're bringing to the business. Let's just do it and split it.
Yeah, you're thinking more long term. Yeah, and tell me a little bit about your brand.
The brand, yeah. So we started out under an agency brand, like most people do. And the agency brand we were under at the time was very much about the agency and not about the agents, even to the point that you couldn't really use photographs on the signboards or the advertising brochures or all the rest of it. So it's quite difficult to build your brand. I think I've read somewhere that people have to have an interaction with you 17 times before they actually start to recognise you as a person or a contact. And if you've got no photos involved or no video, it's longer. So that's the point we started from. So we quickly discovered that actually, even within that brand, you needed to do something a bit different. So with my name being French and having accents on it, and Zhang's name we abbreviated to JK, which is, quite a popular acronym in New Zealand because of Mr. Kerwin. So not, trying to piggyback off someone else's brand, but just realising that initials actually work quite well. And then my name quite often will get abbreviated to T, and lots of people call me T because I'll say Trace, and people look at me and go, well, how's that? How do I pronounce that? Yeah, I just call me T. So we began to realise that people remember you because it's short and sharp and easy, and then you can build a brand around it. So within the agency brand, we started to look at that too, and it's proved to be successful. And we have our own brand within our existing agency, which is Therese and Partners.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And that's the thing you want as an agent, is ultimately when you're doing your marketing, you're building that relationship, you want people to become familiar with who you are.
Exactly.
So that when they pick up the phone, they know who to call.
Yeah, exactly. And, in our industry, there's lots of people, particularly in Auckland, and there's even some agents that have the same name within the same company. Yeah. And that must be a real challenge. Because what's your point of difference if you've actually got the same name and you're with one of the same agencies? That must be quite hard.
Yeah, I remember actually I was at a previous agency to where I am at the network now, and I did quite a lot of business in that agency, and then I took a year off and I left, and there was someone else with the same name as me, and they ended up getting all of the appraisals coming through because they were ringing and saying, I want to talk to Ben, and then I was like, well, I'm Ben as well. And I was overseas, it didn't worry me at all.
No.
But it was just quite funny that they ended up getting quite a few appraisals purely because they had the same name as me.
And I think that kind of reinforces what we're saying about, the brand within the brand's important. They weren't going because they were the agency, it's because it's Ben. So hopefully he delivered on your standards.
I hope so. I'll never know. No, but that's exactly it. In real estate, relationship is so important. So in terms of people getting to know you, obviously Jamie had mentioned you do the motorbike racing. Yeah. Tell me a bit about that, because there's bound to be people out there who love that sort of story.
And as an older white lady, it's quite unusual, I think, that I still ride motorbikes at this point in my career and in my life. So motorbikes has always been a big part of my life and our family's life. So since I've been 16, I've ridden bikes of one shape or another. Back in the UK, we had quite a group of friends around motorcycles, and we used to go off and do touring together, and there were various rallies in the UK, which is just basically a gathering of people, in your 20s, go and drink beer, listen to some bands, camp out at the weekend and ride some nice roads on the way there and on the way back. So it's always been very much part of our social scene. And we've met some great people through it. I have to say, like any group of like-minded people, you tend to have the same interests. You probably come from similar places because you've all arrived at the same place together. So throughout our like teens and 20s, various different things. Interestingly enough, my husband and I were never into riding on the track. We were far more into touring. Didn't do much off-roading riding either, but throughout the journey with our friends, we went through, shipped our bikes to New Zealand, so we've actually still got my old Honda Fireblade.
So you had to take those when you came from overseas.
Yeah,
you left the cars
behind. Yeah, which was maybe not the best financial decision, because we had European cars, and they probably would have cost significantly less to just ship and bring over here than buy again new. But you learn, you pays for your learning.
But it was the emotional choice of the bike.
It was, but we took the bikes, and there's quite a funny story, because I don't know anyone who's ever come here from another country and brought possessions with you. MAF are so just completely fastidious about what you can and can't bring in. So to bring the bikes over, they had to be totally drained of fuel and oil and clean and no mud on the tyres and all that sort of thing, and had to go through the checks at Auckland Airport. So we didn't get reunited with them for quite some time till they'd been processed. But we brought those over here and, carried on, hooked up with some new people, and it was actually quite a good way of meeting people as well, in New Zealand, because, again, like-minded people. My husband is actually now an instructor, so through the IAM, he met new people. We, basically followed the racing, went to various different events and caught up with some people there. So as the kids grew older, it's quite funny. Anyone that's got children might relate to this, but you find particularly if you've got two close together, as soon as one gets good at something, the other will compete fiercely. And then whoever's better at it, the other one just drops off and never wants to do it again.
I had the same with my brother.
Did you? Yeah, and it's quite common. So I've got Natasha, Cameron, 18 months apart, Natasha being the younger one. So very quickly, Cameron became good at riding push bikes, anything with two wheels, scooters, whatever, he was really good at. Natasha was never good at anything with the balance element on two wheels, but was particularly good at swimming. So Cameron hardly swims. He's capable, but hardly swims. Tash went on to do surf lifesaving and beyond. Cameron progressed from riding push bikes and whatnot to riding motorbikes, but didn't really get on one until he was about 16. And it remains that way. So the journey of motorcycles, Cameron got into doing track days, got talent spotted by somebody who's like, oh, you're quite good, you're quite fast. Put him on a 250, which he sponsored, which is a Hyosung 250. And in New Zealand, they've got this whole championship nationally around Hyos. And it's great because it's affordable racing. You can get in, it probably costs you about 10 grand a year to actually have your bike, go and turn up and race at all the tracks. And they're great people, have great fun. From then, he progressed on to doing 300 Supersport, and that's where he's actually now and got a seat in the KTM New Zealand team. So right. 66 Motorsport is the franchise name, and he rides for them second year, and he actually was fifth last year, and he was actually second this year. Nice, so he did pretty well, and there's some pretty decent names in there that he competes up against. But again, a great camaraderie, great people, and of course, as the parents, we catch up with all the parents at the tracks as well. So that's been the journey through. We still ride motorbikes. I've got an Aprilia RS 660 these days, which is lovely. My husband teaches, so it's been very much a journey for us through the motorcycle stuff. So yeah, but it does, and you'll see if you watch my social media this month, there's actually a bit of a skip with me on the bikes this month.
As it relates to...
As it relates to real estate, yes.
Nice.
So that's one to look out for. It's quite funny. But it definitely is a point of difference with people.
Yeah, for sure. So so how does motorbikes relate to real estate? Can you tell me if you were to come up with some sort of parallel between the two?
Yeah, go faster real estate. But I think from a relationship perspective, a lot of people from the motorcycling community they look for someone who's actually they can relate to, and I've got a lot of business from that. I think in terms of analogies, I think racing it's quite competitive, but it's actually about not cutting corners and being able to, leaning over on the corners, yeah. But, at the end of the day, your machine has to be up to spec because you're going to push it beyond the limits. You have to have a rider that knows what they're doing, and then you can actually be in competition with the others. And I think with real estate, it's actually the same. It's about understanding what you need, what your toolkit is, and actually then delivering and focusing on the result. If you ask any of the riders, do you want to be first? Of course I want to be first. But they're all results driven. They understand it's a long game, and if you push it too hard, you're going to fall off on the first corner, you're never going to finish the race. I think the phrase is, in order to finish first you have to finish. And I think it's the same with real estate. You've got to be able to design your campaigns, talk and build your relationship to actually go long term. I
like it.
Yeah, you have to, because otherwise, you can be the first one and you can reach, whatever standards that our industry like to judge us by around the reward structure, which, is a poor yardstick by which to measure success. I like to measure my success by my repeat and referral business, because that means I've done the job properly and they've wanted to come back or tell someone to come back.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I love your answers on that, because when I thought about how to ask that question, I was like, how could you relate motorbikes to real estate? And I had no idea what you would come up with, but it turns out there's quite a lot.
And I took a while to get there, but that's the kind of end of it.
Great.
Yeah.
So, that's awesome. So don't cut corners, make sure you've got a well-oiled machine, so to speak. Make sure you finish the race.
Yeah, exactly. And also, the rider, the real estate agent, you have to know your trade. You have to know your trade, and you have to trust your team.
Yeah,
because the rider goes out there hoping that everyone's tightened up the bolts, put the chain on straight, fuel the bike and all the rest of it. Yeah. And if you run a team, which I do, I have to go out knowing that, the people behind the scenes have done everything right to support our clients.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you also just touched there on the award system in real estate.
Yeah.
I find that an interesting one, because you've obviously won a lot of accolades in real estate. You've got the Elite Awards at Ray White, and that means you've done really well in terms of volume and success selling real estate.
Yeah.
But you mentioned the idea that it's actually about the people who are coming back to you, repeat business and referrals, and I really love that, because I think as an industry we can get caught up in the self-image, like look at what I've done and this is what I've done, where actually it's totally about what we're doing for someone and the success around that.
I think so, and I think as an industry we have image problems, because I think people sometimes struggle to relate to the person. They just see the big shiny machine. And going on to, why do people come to us in real estate? They're coming to us at real estate at a various point in their life, because there's probably a fairly major milestone. So they need to make a big financial decision around purchase or sale of their house. And to try and, trust a big faceless machine must be really hard. And I think as agents, we can't lose sight of the human element in here. So, all the awards, all the accolades, they're great, but they're not the best yardstick to measure your success. As I say, the results we deliver, I think, are what we need to focus on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just like you said, remembering the human side of it.
Yeah.
People are going through a huge transition, death, divorce, marriage, new baby. And as agents, we do it every day, so we can lose track of what someone's actually going through.
Yeah.
And we're effectively helping them make a good decision in that transition that they're going through. So we actually carry a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, I think so. I think you kind of, counsellor at times, and you just need to listen. I think if there's one thing I would give, and I do give new people, is listen. Ask people what they need and listen to it, and then tailor the solution you're delivering around what they need. It's not a one size fits all,
No.
Yeah, and I think one of the challenges that I faced leveraging the business to a bigger, team, is don't lose the personal touch. Because that's when you lose direction and you lose control, and that's where ultimately problems happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And even especially in this market, property prices are a bit tough. People may not be getting what they hope they're going to get for their property, and sometimes it's about having a conversation that is more around what are their goals and not just the financial side of it as well.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, one of the things me and my team often do is we pick up business where the first agency or agent has gone in and not being realistic about the possibilities. And we'll pick it up second time round, and it's often a hard conversation because we're really honest with them about where it needs to be and what their challenges are in the current market and what they're going to have to do to deliver the result. But honestly, I've worked with many clients who've either sold far slower than they wanted to or had to take a price lower than they were hoping for, but have been really happy at the end of it because they feel that we didn't leave any stone unturned and we did deliver the best market value that we could given the terms, and often support them through to their next purchase beyond that, because as anybody knows, as long as you buy and sell in the same market, what you're going to lose on the swing, you'll gain on the roundabout. But helping people to understand that, because people, we're all the same, we only have a certain area of knowledge within what we're doing. And as a real estate agent, we need to try and bring our knowledge and our expertise to an area that people probably only do once every 20 years. I think the average sale in New Zealand is every 7 years.
Yeah, it's something like that.
But quite a lot of older people have maybe been in their house for 20. So as you say, we're doing this every day.
Yeah, and things have changed so much. I mean, even the way you market a property has changed from where it was even 5 or 10 years ago, let alone 20 years ago.
Exactly, yeah. So trying to take the time out to explain that to people so that they understand why you're making the recommendations you do, and build the trust. It's up to us to actually do the right thing.
Yeah. And hopefully we can do that and build trust in the industry and our reputation, and the whole industry will continually get better and better.
Yeah, and I think it's important. I mean, it changes daily. I mean, yesterday the OCR, it stayed where it was. There's an awful lot of speculation now around what interest rates are going to do. So I think one of our roles is actually to be the kind of information provider. It's not just about, do you want to sell your house? It's about, look, this is what's happening. This is what's likely to happen. Where do you want to fit in with that to achieve your goals?
Yeah, one of the ways that I always look at that is that I think our role as a real estate agent is to help people make an informed decision, and also to know what a good decision is, because often it's they get an offer, let's say it's less than what they expect, but it might still be the best decision in that situation. And so as an agent, it's how do we make sure that by the time an offer is on the table that the seller feels confident that they know that they're making the right decision, whether it's to accept or reject or countersign or whatever. But they need to be confident that the decision is a good decision.
Yeah, exactly. And as you say, it's about, I think informed decisions are a really good phrase, because they need the right information to be able to make a pragmatic decision. Yeah, agreed. One of the biggest challenges with that, as you probably know as well, is you've only been on the market 4 days, an offer comes in. As an agent, you know it's a great offer because you know what the market's doing. But to the homeowner, they're like, but it's only been on the market 4 days. Why should I take this offer? It could get better. And it's being able to furnish them with the information to make the right decision. Yeah,
absolutely. It's funny that the early offers thing is such a challenge for agents, and one of the ways that I try to explain it to people is that at the start of a campaign, you have people who have been looking for the last 3 or 6 months. They're pre-approved, they've looked at 50 houses, they're ready to make an offer, they're cashed up, whatever it is. And those are the people who, if you don't capitalise on them early, then let's say after you've run your auction campaign or set date of sale or whatever it is you're doing, the buyers that are now coming to the market are people who are new to the market, or they're people who have changed their expectations on price or something, but there's a significant drop-off in terms of the captive audience and the ability to create competition. So you need to make sure that in that first 3 or 4 weeks you are capitalising on the significantly higher interest that you have.
Yeah, you're right. And I've got a phrase I often use, and I use it I call it a sector sale meeting. So before we go off on the market, we actually have a final meeting and go through the what-if scenarios and say it's not how long the property's been on the market, it's how long the buyer's been in the market.
Exactly.
So absolutely what you're saying. Yeah,
100%.
Yeah.
All right, so I have a few quick-fire questions for you.
Oh, okay.
Just to wrap things up. So, first one here, what is your funniest real estate story?
Oh, my funniest real estate story. There's been several. So it's about an on-site auction. Now, I don't do on-site auctions anymore unless the vendor really wants me to. And this is why. So many years ago, we had a great campaign, had 25 registered auction bidders, lovely little place in the Bays, Sunday afternoon auction. So everyone's turned up and we're trying to get it all ready for auction, beautiful day. And the property in question's got a trampoline in the corner. And the several families, because it's a family home. Anyway, one of the families had got distracted. Their kids were on the trampoline. No net on the trampoline, bounced on it. And just as we're about to start the auction, little Johnny has bounced off the trampoline, face planted on the floor, blood everywhere. Had to stop everything, call the ambulance. Ambulance turns up, Johnny's broken his nose, and we've got Shortland Street playing out on the lawn at what should be an auction.
Just a small distraction.
Small distraction. So luckily, nobody left and all the rest of it. And Johnny was fine. He was just shaken and a quick trip off in the ambulance, and he was all fine the next day. But looking back on it, it is quite a humorous story because the focus should have been around, the couple that were selling their house, and it turned out to be this whole disaster that played out. And as I say, I've since used that story many times about why it's better to run an auctioning room sometimes, because you can control the environment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
At least it might lighten the mood a tiny bit for people, take the pressure off a little bit.
And it did. And as I say, no one was hurt, so it wasn't a big deal. But it just illustrates, you just can't control something. So maybe the learning out of that was, so don't put yourself in a position where you can't control it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, oh, nice. All right. Next question. What do you think is the biggest myth in real estate?
Oh, the biggest myth in real estate. That's quite a tough one because there's several myths. I think the biggest myth I come across is about an agent will tell you a price that the market will pay. And we all do the appraisals, we all follow the rules of, the comparable market analysis, but no one can tell you what the market's going to pay. You can use your experience to actually drive out the right competition to generate the best market price. But but my agent told me I'm going to get this for it. I think that's a big myth. And the sooner people actually realise that, or maybe it's our fault as real estate agents, maybe we need to be a lot more focused around, look, we will deliver you the best buyer, we will deliver you the best marketing and bring as many people in competition as we can, but no one can predict a final price. It will be likely to be within this range. But because quite often, and I think people have been misguided, they'll be, but it should be worth this, so-and-so told me it'd be worth this. No, that's a myth.
And sometimes it's not the agent, sometimes it's a friend or the lawyer or someone.
The sales prevention committee, as I call them, the well-meaning but misguided family members or whatever. Yeah, I think that's the biggest myth, that you can predict an accurate price.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually tell people I've been wrong by up to $400,000 before.
Yeah.
And that was at the low side, so I underappraised the property.
Yeah.
But I say I'll never let my own expectations or dictate what I think you can get for your house, because it comes down to what the purchaser is prepared to pay. And my job as an agent is to ask the right questions to understand what their motivation is, what their hurdles are, and from that establish how much they're prepared to pay for your property and what the maximum is I can work for you on to broker a win-win deal.
Exactly. And that goes back to what we were saying about just helping the clients to understand the process. We do this every day. We understand what happens. And we shouldn't assume that other people understand, because they don't. So it's just taking a bit of time out to, as you say, illustrate this is the way we will get you the best market price.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, and last question for you. What is your biggest life lesson that you've learned?
Oh, my biggest life lesson, gosh. Sometimes you can't fix it. So in my corporate finance world, you could always fix it. You'd be running a project and something would go wrong. So you either put more people on it, put more money on it, or move the end date. But you'd get there in the end. You might have to, rework the scope or drop some of the requirements down. When I came to real estate, and because it is actually about relationship and about people, there was times that I couldn't. Well, what do you mean you've changed your mind? You wanted to buy it yesterday, and what's changed? Yeah, it does change. So sometimes you can facilitate the environment, you can facilitate what's going to happen, but you can't always drive out the result you want or you think should happen. You have to support the people through to make that informed decision. You might not agree with it sometimes, but it's not about you. It's about what's right for the client. And that's my biggest lesson, going from something that was far more strategic and numbers driven to going to something that's actually, people driven. Yeah.
Yeah, people are complex beasts.
Oh, absolutely. And you can never, you can probably predict that what you're going to think will happen won't be what happens. Yeah.
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 Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, hey, thanks for coming on. I've really enjoyed the conversation. Hopefully there's something for our viewers in that. In fact, there will be.
Yeah.
And look forward to the next time we chat.
Oh, a pleasure. Really nice to talk to you. Thanks for inviting me on.